She hasn't withdrawn that extradition bill. She says it's dead still. She won't do it, but she's not given anything for the protesters just yet to give them a nominal victory at least. And it seems like she's toeing and sticking to her guns here.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's shocking but also expected that she said absolutely nothing new. Her first public appearance in some 2 weeks, weeks in which there's been continuing protests and action throughout Hong Kong, and she really has said the same lines that she's been reciting for several months now. Really astounding that a government can just completely fail to address the demands coming from the people here.
Is she, I mean, that might be a sign of her running out of options. Do you think it is?
Look, it may be that her hands are tied by Beijing and what they are allowing her to say or not say. But the real problem that we face now is that this vacuum of leadership, this lack of governance is leading to a collapse in public trust, in particular in the police. And we've seen that in particular over the weekends with a number of clashes outside police stations, people openly defying police. And that's not just a small violent minority of protesters. That seems to be spreading throughout the community, and there's no leadership from the government to address that.
And Antony, she's just been talking about the police as well, saying the police are safeguarding the city's law and order, saying also that the media should have more understanding on what police actions are. This brings us to the fundamental point. It's not about the extradition bill, surely, anymore. It's much, much deeper than that, this angst. How did this administration lose the hearts and minds of the Hong Kong people?
It's really by failing to respond in a timely fashion to the things that the people are saying. If Carrie Lam, after the first million-person march we saw in June, came out and said, look, I hear the community and we'll go slowly and we'll reconsider this extradition bill, none of the past couple of months would have happened. The fact that she refused to listen, continued to stick to her guns, brought 2 million people out onto the streets the following week, still was very slow in responding, just means that things have continued to escalate. And with every week of protest, new events occur, such as clashes with the police, that lead to new demands from the protesters. So we sort of have a snowballing effect here.
In terms of how they then approach this, what would your prescription be? I mean, who needs to be around that negotiating table right now?
I think the difficulty with the so-called leaderless protests that Carrie Lam is facing is there's not necessarily anyone for her to negotiate with, but certainly there seem to be pretty easy policy fixes that she can take. The first is to use the word withdraw in connection with the bill rather than just say it is dead. The second would definitely be to institute an independent commission of inquiry. That's a key demand from protesters, and given the disruptions we've seen to Hong Kong society, seems to be necessary just to get the community to reconcile. And the third thing would be to reopen the political consultation process that was abandoned after the umbrella movement 5 years ago and sort of get people moving in the direction.
Would you, with the PBOC at the moment just talking about the Chinese economy being sound, or the economy is fundamentally sound, that's just a line coming from the central bank here, and that they're able to keep the yuan stable at a reasonable balanced level, despite the massive fallback that we've seen and the breach of 7. That's one thing which is going on in China proper sort of thing, but let's just take a look at what you were just mentioning. There seems to... Would you ever describe the administrations that we've had, not just this one, but CY Leung's before, as perhaps having a paucity of leadership, given that there's not been a real inquiry into what has happened and the mainsprings of why things have come to pass in the manner that they have?
Exactly. Really, there should have been an inquiry after the umbrella movement of 2014, and you'd think that any government who had their city brought to a standstill for close to 3 months would want to know why, and to investigate some of the issues coming out of that. And if that had happened at the time, perhaps the government wouldn't find themselves in the position they are now. But to go back to your first point, certainly there's been a paucity of leadership, and that could be because none of the chief executives are politicians. They've never had to meet the people, run a campaign and respond to public opinion. They've only had to respond to 1,200 people that voted them in through the election committee, and that makes a difference to the kind of, to how equipped they are to be political leaders.